Billionaire discovers nanny and one-year-old twins tied up. What happens next will amaze you. Ethan Donovan was in the middle of a crucial deal when the frantic call came. His assistant's voice trembled on the line. "Mr. Donovan, something's happened at home. You need to come immediately." Frowning, he felt a wave of unease crash over him, resonating within the walls of his opulent mansion. As he sped down the roads of Beverly Hills, images of his luxurious life flickered through his mind: the sprawling mansion, the carefully curated art, the lavish parties. But it all felt hollow now. An eerie silence settled in the back of his throat. What could happen in a space that embodied his every dream? He was used to exerting control, but the fear, a raw, gripping fear, gnawed at his insides. Upon bursting through the door, the sight before him struck his core. Maria, his trusted nanny, lay on the floor, her eyes wide with terror. The twins, Sarah and Sam, were next to her, their little bodies trembling and bound. Panic surged in Ethan's chest, and he rushed to Maria. He felt the rough cords against his fingers as he hastily untied her. "What happened?" he gasped, his words laced with urgency. Maria breathed heavily, eyeing the front door as if expecting danger to burst through. "They wanted you, Ethan," they said, her voice cracked under the weight of fear. Doubt washed over him. In an instant, the people he surrounded himself with, the elite that fawned over his wealth, began to morph into figures of suspicion. He pondered the fragile alliances he had fostered among his affluent peers. Were they real friends, or just opportunistic acquaintances? He racked his brain, struggling against years of insulating privilege. With each breath, he recalled Maria's sacrifices as a single mother. How had he overlooked her struggles? "I never wanted you to be part of this," Maria whispered, eyes wide. In that moment, he felt an uncomfortable connection, a bittersweet reminder of the man he used to be, the values his parents had once instilled in him. They echoed against the backdrop of his extravagant life, now feeling trivial in the face of true danger. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Maria's soft sobs filled the room, anxiety wrapped around his chest like a vice. He hated that he could feel his empire crumble under the weight of this betrayal. How could people he once trusted conspire against the ones he loved? His heart raced with each thought as he tried reconciling the duality of his life, the firm grip of deceit and the realization he had failed not just Maria, but himself. Determined to dig deeper, he realized the battle lay not just in protecting his family, but also in confronting his own misguided perception. Torn between the elite community that had betrayed him and the raw, tender connection laying before him in Maria's eyes, Ethan teetered on the edge of transformation. As he stepped closer to the door, a chilling message lit up his phone. The words froze him in place. "We know what you found out, Ethan. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Ethan's mind raced, each pulse a reminder of the precarious situation unfurling around him. The combination of threat and vulnerability triggered an instinct buried deep beneath layers of opulence his protective nature awoke. The chilling message served as an urgent alarm. It demanded clarity, action, and a rewiring of his understanding of safety. He clenched his fists, knowing that more than his own life hung in the balance. "Maria, stay here with the twins," he instructed, his voice steadier than he felt. Her vulnerability had laid bare his own foolishness. For the years he had insulated himself in wealth. Instead of waiting for the storm to invade, he had to take control. This wasn't just about securing his family, it was a reckoning with the man he had been and the leader he aspired to become. He stepped out of the house, allowing the nighttime chill to restore some clarity. The lavish lights of Beverly Hills flickered around him, a stark contrast to the darkness in his heart. He needed to confront the tangled web of alliances that had unknowingly ensnared him. Sophisticated yet superficial friendships created a facade that might very well be hiding predators. Ethan turned toward his sleek car in the driveway, but a thought seized him. What if he was being watched? He carefully circled it, searching for eyes that might pierce through the veil of darkness. Each meticulous glance felt like peeling back layers of his own naivety, a reminder that trust had become a commodity he could no longer afford. As he slid into the driver's seat, adrenaline sharpened his senses. He redirected his focus to the encrypted message. Who knew about what he had discovered? What dangerous secrets had been unearthed? Each answer could lead him deeper into a dark abyss, revealing hidden enemies at every turn. A plan began to form. He would first contact his most reputable business partner, a man he had shared countless deals with, Michael Chen. But would Michael be a potential ally or part of the conspiracy? Doubt loitered in the back of his mind, a testament of years of shaky trust. Yet, this discomfort also mobilized him, it propelled him into the realm of confronting uncomfortable truths. "Meet me in the office," he texted Michael, his fingers hovering over the screen for a moment longer, second-guessing his instincts. This was reckless, yet if he was to salvage anything, he needed clarity and allies. As he drove, flashes of his past surfaced. The commitment he had made to self-sufficiency, the countless nights he had pored over spreadsheets instead of nurturing relationships. Suddenly, the money and power felt weightless, mere distractions from the authentic connections he had forsaken. The realization painfully marked the beginning of his awakening. He hadn't been just building an empire, he had been fortifying his loneliness. After arriving at his office, Ethan carefully considered the turbulence in his gut. He would have to confront Michael with all the skepticism he had harbored. Communication had to be piercing, muscles tense from the precision of candor. Trust had to be earned again, not demanded. He took a calming breath just before Michael strode in, confidence personified. Their greetings were cordial yet stilted, and with a pinpoint resolve, he launched into the heart of the matter. "I received a mysterious message today. Someone knows what I uncovered." The room thickened with anticipation as Ethan locked eyes with Michael. This was not merely a business transaction, it was a trial of loyalties. But what he didn't know was that the confrontation with Michael would unearth more than he had bargained for, and the true danger was lurking closer than he could possibly imagine. Ethan's heart drummed in unison with the weight of his words, a pulse that bridged the distance between them. Michael's eyes flickered, calculating. The air charged with unspoken implications. Ethan had anticipated skepticism, yet seeing it materialize as doubt in Michael's gaze forced him to confront a more personal fear, the possibility of betrayal lurking in a friendship forged over years of success. "What do you mean, someone knows?" Michael asked, his voice even but betraying just a hint of apprehension. Ethan swallowed hard. "I received an anonymous message. It detailed my recent investigations. We may be compromised." Each word felt like throwing a stone into an expansive void, echoing back the inadequacies he had ignored for far too long. As Michael shifted uncomfortably, Ethan realized this was more than a professional crisis, it was a reprimand for his own negligence in the complexities of trust. "Did you say anything to anyone? Is it possible you've stirred the pot without realizing it?" Michael probed, his keen instincts sharpening in the face of danger. Ethan bristled at the implication. "I've only pursued leads I believed to be legitimate." "I didn't think." "Exactly. You didn't think," Michael interrupted sharply. This was not merely an inquiry, it was a moment of clarity, the kind he needed to dissect his own tendency toward isolation. Ethan's nerves flared. He took a decisive breath, realigning his focus. "I need your help, Michael. If we're both at risk, sticking together might be the only way to weather this storm. But I need to know I can count on you." There was an urgency that mirrored the vulnerability he had recently unearthed. Each word had to pierce the smog of their shared history. Michael's expression shifted, his posture relaxing slightly as he considered Ethan. "If you're right, then we have to be strategic. Start by telling me everything you've found. We need a full understanding of what we're dealing with." This collaborative impulse was something Ethan had long shunned. The notion that leaning into shared vulnerabilities could yield strength unsettled him, and yet it became increasingly clear that alone, he was at a disadvantage. Sharing his findings was a leap into uncharted territory, leaving the security of isolation behind. As he laid out the details of his investigation, a stirring realization seeped in: he was not just assembling facts, he was dismantling a fortress he had built around himself. Picking apart layers of secrecy required not just courage but also a willingness to admit his own ignorance. Each revelation acted as both a nail in the coffin of his previous life and a pivotal turning point toward self-discovery. Ethan, we need to create a plan of action. But going under the radar is going to require more than just us. Michael laid out a strategy that involved not only their combined resources but also outside help. Ethan felt a pang of doubt at the thought of involving others. It was a breach of the solitary path he had so carefully curated. Yet, beneath this trepidation lay an ember of determination. Perhaps this was how he would cultivate a genuine network, one that transcended mere transactional interactions. I'll reach out to a few trusted contacts. We'll need eyes and ears on the ground, Michael proposed, signaling a move toward active engagement rather than passive defense. Before they could delve deeper, a sharp clang cut through the air. Ethan's phone buzzed violently on the desk. An urgent message, a photograph, a snapshot of his twins, serene yet vulnerable, but an unmistakable threat loomed in the shadows behind them. All thoughts scattered like leaves before a storm. This was not merely about business or betrayal, it was about something so fundamentally precious that it eclipsed everything he had worked to build. In that instant, the stakes skyrocketed, and each moment of introspection faded behind the haze of an escalating crisis. Ethan's resolve solidified, all doubts vanquished. I'll do whatever it takes, he declared, a newfound fierceness igniting within. But what he didn't yet realize was that the path forward would not only challenge his loyalty but force him to confront demons more complex than any external threat. The struggle ahead manifested not just in fighting for his family but in reshaping the very fabric of who he believed himself to be. A deeper threat lingered, one that would demand more than just strategic partnerships. It would test the core of his evolving identity. Ethan's pulse raced, his hands trembling ever so slightly as he clutched the phone. The image before him was not merely a snapshot, it was a stark reminder of everything he held dear. In that moment, the burden of responsibility crashed over him, revealing layers of self-doubt that had long resided beneath his professional exterior. He had spent years building walls to isolate himself, but now every brick felt like a tether to the very threat he wished to evade. Ethan, look at me. Michael's voice cut through the haze of his thoughts, urging Ethan to focus. We need to think clearly. Panic will only cloud our judgment. The sharpness in Michael's tone reminded Ethan of the clarity he required. Right. Still, his mind swirled with the implications of that photo. He could envision the worst, his twins, his entire world caught in a perilous game he hadn't even realized he was playing. The message, it was blackmail, wasn't it? There's a reason they sent that to me. Michael nodded, his brow furrowing. We can't jump to conclusions, but we need to consider the worst-case scenarios. First, we protect your family. Second, we figure out who is behind this. A flurry of thoughts shot through Ethan's mind. The danger was real, palpable, yet it pricked at an underlying fear as well, one that had clung to him since childhood. Did he really possess the strength to protect those he loved? For years, isolation had felt like strength, it was easier to cut out connections. But now, he faced the terrifying reality of relying on others, a seed of doubt insinuating itself deep within. I can't put them at risk because of my mistakes, he rasped, more to himself than to Michael. His voice lost an edge of confidence, revealing the fissures in his facade. The juxtaposition of his professional invulnerability and paternal vulnerability hit hard. I should have relied on a team. I should have brought in family emergencies experts instead of trying to handle this myself. This isn't about blame, it's about action. The urgency in Michael's tone brought Ethan back. Let us create a safe space for your children and contact someone who can handle this. He began to jot down a list of contacts, each name triggering memories of reliable connections from the past. Ethan felt a pang as he watched Michael work, a man who knew how to reach beyond his own limitations. Grudgingly, he recognized the latent potential inside himself as well. There, behind the self-reproach, lay a burgeoning sense of resolve that demanded salience. Trust was a risk, but perhaps it was a risk worth taking the first step toward forming the very network he had silently longed for. "I'll contact my brother," he said suddenly, surprising even himself. The thought of reaching out to family came with waves of unease, yet laced with an unexpected warmth, remnants of a bond he feared had dulled over time. Michael's eyebrows lifted in approval. "Good idea. Anyone with insight about security, especially family, is crucial right now." Ethan hesitated momentarily, a new realization dawning on him. The walls he had constructed were beginning to falter, and in their place were opportunities for growth and rekindling connections. Not just out of necessity, but out of an intrinsic need for companionship and support. As he reached for his phone, a sudden thought gripped him. What if they target my kids directly? What if I can't piece this together in time? Michael placed a steady hand on Ethan's shoulder. "We'll create a plan. We'll ensure that doesn't happen." The reassurance comforted Ethan somewhat, forging an unspoken pact of commitment between them. Every step forward sown with uncertainty beckoned internal scrutiny. But with each decision lay the chance to transform his life from one of isolation to one intertwined with the strength of others. Time is critical, Ethan recognized. The gravity of immediate action pulled at him. The resolve solidified further with each heartbeat. "We need to act now." As he dialed his brother's number, awaiting the connection, he wondered how far he could push past his self-imposed barriers. Was he ready to reconvene those connections he had severed? With faith trembling and flickering, he realized that to protect his family, he was embarking on the most transformative journey of all, one that challenged not just his external threats but his internal demons. His brother answered, the concerned tone amplifying the stakes in Ethan's heart. "Ethan, what's going on?" Before he could respond, a realization cut through the air. He would need to confront the uncharted facets of his identity and responsibility head-on. Balance was tipping in ways he had never anticipated, and as the conversation unfolded, he understood he was inescapably redefining what it meant to be a protector in both familial and professional landscapes. And beneath all the tension, a nagging thought lingered: what if confronting these demons revealed more than just vulnerability? What if it unveiled hidden strengths he had yet to acknowledge? A fateful silence stretched as he prepared to open up, plunging into a daunting territory where every word mattered. Ethan's heart pounded as he hesitated, grappling with thoughts that threatened to overwhelm him. The waiting silence on the other end of the line seemed to echo his internal turmoil. He needed to articulate the urgency embedded in the situation without panicking his brother. "Listen, James," he started, tone striving for steadiness. "There's a problem, a significant one. I believe someone is targeting my children. I got a taunting photo, and I need your help." He fought against the surge of vulnerability creeping through his words. Each syllable felt like a concession, a breaking of the tough exterior he had held on to for too long. "You're serious?" James's voice sharpened, veering into worry. Ethan could almost visualize the furrow on his brother's brow. "What do you need me to do?" "Security, expertise. I realize now that I can't handle this alone." "I should have reached out sooner," he admitted, the weight of regret laying heavy in his chest. "I should have asked for help." "Damn right you should have," James replied, firm yet empathetic. "But let us fix that. I'll be there as soon as I can." "We'll make sure the kids are safe," he replied, fierce protectiveness layered beneath reassurance. As he hung up, Ethan felt a mix of relief and apprehension wash over him. He was thrust into a network of support he had long neglected, and while he knew this was essential, it came with a barrage of uncertainty. Trusting others felt like unearthing a buried treasure, admirable yet fraught with danger. What if James' assistance brought fresh complications? Meanwhile, Michael was already moving, driven by a sense of urgency Ethan found both grounding and motivating. "Let us set up a strategy to fortify your home. Together, we can break down paths they might be planning to leverage." Ethan watched, a sense of respect threading through his anxiety. Michael had transformed from a deterring voice to an ally infused with actionable resolve. It dawned on him that Michael's presence offered a glimpse of a new identity, one that embraced vulnerability and shared responsibility rather than retreating into isolation. While they discussed immediate security measures, Ethan's mind raced ahead, contemplating what it meant to confront the past. The personal walls he had meticulously maintained were crumbling, and in their place lay opportunities, genuine relationships waiting to be formed. More than a fear of the threats they faced, there was a dawning realization of the flaws in his isolationist mindset. Before we dive deep into fortifying the house, Michael interjected, momentarily breaking Ethan's reverie, let us also consider the kids if they see this on the news or if something leaks. We'll need to have a plan for them to reassure them that everything is fine and that they're safe with you. Ethan visibly flinched at the thought. His heart clenched with a wave of guilt. How could he allow such a burden to impact his children's innocence? This was another dimension he hadn't considered amidst the chaos. Here he was, gearing toward being a protector yet feeling acutely unprepared. What do I even say to them? He asked, his voice dipping into uncertainty. Fear of inadequacy threatened to resurface. They'll feel your resolve. Show them it's okay to be scared, but reassure them that they're not alone in this. It's your duty as their father not just to shield them, but to foster courage within them, Michael urged, firm but kind. This situation could be a turning point for you all if you let it. Ethan absorbed the words, feelings of dread and hope intertwining. Did he really have the strength to encourage resilience in his kids while he felt so thoroughly shaken? A self-joined vow unfurled within him, ignited by an ember of newfound clarity. Protectiveness had morphed into the opportunity for shared journeys of growth. Suddenly, the flickering sensation of uncertainty transitioned into an emerging determination. If he could peel back the layers shielding him from connection, perhaps he could not only safeguard his children's future but also sculpt a brighter legacy for himself. Each challenge could be woven into the narrative of their collective resilience, a journey toward embracing vulnerability instead of shunning it. Let us get started, he said decisively, his voice carrying a newfound weight. We'll do this together. But amidst the burgeoning strength and ideas swelling within him, another thought nudged, unbidden. What would happen once the immediate threat dissipated? Would he have the courage to maintain these connections, or would he slip back into his old patterns? As they prepared to lay out plans, the specter of unresolved questions loomed just as heavily as the external threats. And deep in Ethan's core, a daunting realization formed: transformation demanded more than responding to crises. It necessitated an unwavering commitment to evolve beyond past defenses, even when the dangers of vulnerability seemed terrifyingly real. As their bustling planning commenced, he knew this was only the beginning of his struggle. What would happen when the dust settled? Would he face the emotional havoc that lurked behind his walls, or would he again evade the lessons learned through collective effort? The planning session unfolded with a layer of intensity that Ethan had never experienced in his life. Michael's presence had transformed the space around them. It felt as though urgency carved a path through the mundane walls of his home, elevating every conversation to a critical level. Charts, security layouts, and emergency protocols spread across the living room table, reflecting not just a strategy but a commitment to something bigger: his family's safety. Here's what I suggest, Michael said, his voice steady, slicing through Ethan's racing thoughts. We install cameras around the perimeter, reinforce the doors, and create a safe room for the kids. But that's just the defensive side. We need to be proactive, to consider communication routes and escape plans. Ethan nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. The gravity of the situation pressed down like a lead weight, yet he felt an unfamiliar surge of clarity amid the chaos. Each plan they meticulously mapped out felt like a brick being laid in the foundation of a new life. But doubt still loomed in the corners of his mind. Could they truly protect his children from an unseen threat? Hours passed with discussions, decisions, and new ideas flowing like a river of resolve. When Michael suggested they incorporate the children into the planning, Ethan hesitated. Do we really need to involve them? Isn't it safer to shield them from all of this? Not if you want them to understand that security is a shared responsibility, Michael countered, the conviction in his voice unwavering. By being transparent, you're teaching them how to face adversity head-on. It's a vital lesson. A chilling thought struck Ethan: what would his children learn about fear if he continued to mask his own? The memory of their laughter echoed through his mind, innocent and untainted. Would he allow their childhood to be overshadowed by his inability to confront not just external threats, but also the shadows hiding within himself? Taking a deep breath, he nodded again. Okay, let us involve them, but we need to keep it kid-friendly. As they gathered the twins, Ethan felt the tension between determination and dread. He wanted to be their hero, the bulwark against life's horrors, but he felt like a cracked mirror shattered with vulnerabilities and doubts. He knelt before his children, their bright eyes gazing back innocently. Hey, guys! We're going to play a game today, a special mission. Like superheroes? One of them asked eagerly. Exactly. Superheroes protect their families, and we're going to talk about how we can do that together. As he spoke, Ethan felt a shift within himself. This was a pivotal moment not only for his children but for him as well. The conversation revealed a depth to his children he hadn't anticipated. They were engaged, eager to contribute ideas about hiding spots and safe routes, their imaginations floating free even amid the tension. Later, as fear simmered beneath the surface, Ethan found a shard of strength within the chaos. His children's upbeat spirit sparked something new in him. With every idea they shared, he began to rebuild the walls he had seen as barriers into something porous and supportive. But the exhilaration quickly evaporated into a chilling realization. With each shared moment came a new vulnerability, a connection that could be severed by the threats lurking outside. The fear of what he could lose raced through him, becoming intertwined with the desire to protect. As evening settled in, casting long shadows across his living room, the reality of his evolving role slapped him back into uncertainty. He had tried to shield his family from harm, but instead, through Michael's guidance and his children's involvement, he unearthed a dependence on others, unraveling the threads of control he had been clinging to. Feeling torn, a flicker of panic ignited at the thought of relinquishing control. What if their bond made them more exposed, rather than safe? A question sank deep into his bones. If he was to forge ahead into this newfound collaborative spirit, could he genuinely embrace the vulnerability and not crumble under its weight? Ethan glanced at his children, who were momentarily consumed by the idea of a superhero mission. In their eyes, he saw sparkles of trust, courage, the very traits he longed to nurture within himself. But as he stepped away, a thought punctured through the fabric of his courage. What would he do when the danger loomed closer, forcing him to confront not just the external threat but the internal maze of his true fears? The weight of impending challenges pressed on him as he contemplated the fragile balance between strength and vulnerability he was beginning to navigate. What shadow of his past would appear to confront him when he least expected it, as the war between protecting and allowing his children to embrace their fear raged on within? Ethan awoke the following morning, tension thrumming through his veins like a live wire. The sun filtered through the curtains, casting striped patterns across the room, but the light did little to ease the burden he now felt. The discussions with Michael replayed in his mind, but they were overshadowed by the unshakable realization that he was not just facing external threats, he was also at war with his own insecurities. Resolutely, he rolled out of bed. Today would be different. He could no longer afford to linger in uncertainty. He would take the first step towards solidifying the plans they had devised. As he dressed, he contemplated how to implement their security strategies. Reinforcing doors and installing cameras seemed straightforward, yet it hinged on an equally daunting task, shaping his mindset to meet the challenges head-on. After breakfast, Ethan called the home security company he had researched. As he spoke with the representative, the process felt foreign yet invigorating. Each detail, choosing the right cameras, deciding on placement, empowered him. It was a tangible building block towards safeguarding his family, a way to stabilize the tumultuous thoughts spiraling in his mind. But beneath that empowerment lurked his self-doubt, whispering critiques that eroded his confidence. Could I really protect them? He mused to himself after the call, the question tugging at his sense of agency. Dismissively, he shook off the thought. It was just noise created by his fear. He had taken concrete steps with Michael's guidance, and the next measure of progress lay in enacting those plans with his children. His mind shifted as he wandered back to the living room, where crayon scribbles still dotted a makeshift map they had created together. The escape routes and hiding places drawn out by tiny hands were full of naive hope he'd need to harness that spirit today. Inviting the twins into the next phase of preparations felt essential. "Hey, guys!" he called excitedly. "Do you want to help me finish our special mission?" They rushed in, faces bright and filled with enthusiasm. As they gathered around the table, Ethan felt energized. This was not just about protecting them, it was about creating a sense of teamwork, resilience, and shared purpose. He laid out the security plans for them, simple diagrams, bright colors, and encouraged them to help decide where everything should be. As they debated and discussed, Ethan caught a glimpse of his children's growing confidence. They were solving problems that felt monumental only yesterday, and in those moments, Ethan, too, began to find a sliver of his own strength. Their candid views on safety struck him. They were speaking with candor that he had almost forgotten in his adult complexities. Yet, with every decision made jointly, his vulnerability surfaced. Would he be a good enough father to navigate through the discussions about danger that would inevitably arise? He wanted to honor their creativity while preparing them for the realities of life, creating a paradox of openness against the backdrop of sincere caution. An hour flew by as they meticulously mapped out new hiding spots in their home and designated safe zones. The dialogue blossomed into an adventure, one that left each of them beaming with pride. But through this creativity came a gnawing worry. He questioned what might happen if one day, the stakes became too real. The air felt charged as Ethan's internal conflict unfolded. Would this bravery backfire? Would this newfound openness expose them to threats rather than fortify them? Each pang of concern opened up a fissure in his heart but also prompted him to engage more deeply with his children. They needed to learn how to confront their fears together, an invaluable lesson he wished he had grasped sooner. As the morning turned to afternoon, Ethan steeled himself for an unexpected phone call that would push him further into his personal abyss. His pulse quickened as the number flashed on his screen, an old friend from a past he could hardly recall. The time had come to face what exactly? He pondered. An unfamiliar fear gripped him. What shadows would this confrontation unearth? Without knowing, he was moving closer to a reckoning that would push his understanding of strength, vulnerability, and loyalty to their absolute limits. The phone rang again, its persistent tone slicing through the air thick with expectation. Ethan stared at the screen, the name conjuring a mess of memories he wasn't ready to confront. It felt surreal, like a specter from a life he thought he had sealed off, the shadows of past decisions creeping into his present. Taking a deep breath, he pressed accept. "Hey, Mark," he greeted, trying to keep his voice steady, as though he was merely chatting about the weather. He could almost hear his own heart thumping in response, betraying the confidence that was but an illusion. "Ethan." "It's been a while," Mark's voice boomed, recalling the carefree days when life unfolded without the weight of adult responsibilities. "I was hoping we could catch up." "Yeah, sure," Ethan replied, the walls of their old friendship seeming to close in around him. The conversation flowed with the ease of familiarity, but underneath, Ethan battled a tidal wave of unease. "What's on your mind?" "Well, I've gone through some changes." "Think of it as moving on to a new chapter," Mark said, a note of excitement sparking his tone. "I wanted to discuss a potential collaboration. Some business opportunities came my way that I think we could leverage together." The notion of revisiting past partnerships stirred a cocktail of anxiety and intrigue within Ethan. Could he afford to engage with Mark without opening doors he wished to keep shut? "What are you suggesting?" he asked cautiously, the weight of uncertainty settling heavy in his chest. Over the next few minutes, Mark laid out his ambitious plans, grand ideas that made Ethan's pulse race, both from the thrill yet also from the recognition of familiar traps this kind of talk had once led him toward. He hesitated, tempted yet tethered by the responsibilities waiting at home. "You know my family, the kids," Ethan said, conscious of how each word was infused not just with love but also with fear of the unknown that accompanied every decision. "Maybe we could integrate your security solutions into some public safety initiatives," Mark suggested. The implication hung there, teasing the delicate line between protection and exposure. "What if we could put you at the forefront of something significant?" Ethan leaned back in his chair, tension coiling in his muscles. Here was the chance to step into the limelight again, a chance to reclaim some vitality he felt slipping away. But at what cost? The ghosts of past choices whispered doubts into his ear. Would this push him toward growth, or lead him to drown in obligations? Let me think it over, Ethan said, attempting to conceal the turmoil twisted in his stomach. As much as he craved advancement, the simplistic notions of safety he'd just cultivated with his children flooded back to him. Had he really spent the morning empowering them only to consider flinging himself back into a world fraught with risk? After hanging up, Ethan's mind churned. The contrast of his morning filled with genuine shared moments of growth and teamwork with his children against the glitzy yet unstable promises of the past felt jarring. Could he truly manage both worlds? He was rising to the challenge of fatherhood, crafting security for his family, but there were still shadows of his former life, clamoring for attention, echoing in his thoughts. As the evening settled, his internal debate solidified. The whisperings of fear and the pursuit of ambition clashed violently within him. Was he capable of balancing this new venture with his newfound responsibilities? Could he really protect his family while stepping into a space that had once led to chaos? He closed his eyes, striving for clarity amid the haze swirling in his mind. Just then, he was jolted by a muffled noise from the twins' room, a fractured cry bouncing against the walls, cutting through the remnants of his contemplative silence. Before he even knew it, Ethan was on his feet, sprinting toward the sound, heart racing with the urgency that only a parent could know. He burst through the door, dread pooling in his stomach. Had he not secured the boundaries he just established? The real test of his commitment to both family and self was about to unfold, and in that very moment, it was clear that he must confront the real threats lurking both inside and outside his home. As he peered into the room, expecting the worst, Ethan knew the answers he sought wouldn't rest in safety but in understanding exactly what it meant to protect those he loved. What he found would challenge everything he had just begun to believe about strength, resilience, and the very nature of protection itself. Ethan pushed the door open wider and scanned the dim room, the shadows morphing into vague shapes that stirred an unsettling mixture of relief and dread within him. As his eyes adjusted, he took in the scene that lay before him. The twins were safe, but their toys were scattered across the floor, forming a colorful chaos. A plush dinosaur, usually a source of giggles, lay abandoned next to a heap of blocks, causing Ethan's heart to quicken. "Hey! What's going on in here?" he called out, his voice a firm yet gentle tool that belied the rising tension in his chest. But there were no answers from his children, just another round of muffled whimpers and wide-eyed stares. The blanket they normally cuddled with during bedtime was askew, adding to the disarray. It was a comforting scene wrapped in a layer of chaos, and he realized that it might just represent the turmoil within him, the wrestling between his past and present. "Dada!" one of the twins cried, reaching for him with outstretched arms, an innocent gesture that ignited a sense of responsibility sharper than any blade. He knelt to scoop them up, their small bodies offering an anchor against the turbulent storm brewing within his mind. As he cradled them close, the reality of their need weighed on him. Their giggles pulled at the strings of nostalgia, tethering him momentarily to simpler times, the laughter before pressures and adult decisions clouded the air. Yet he couldn't ignore the growing tension sparked by Mark's proposition. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" he asked, softening his tone, another net woven into the fabric of fatherhood, one that entailed gentle discovery as much as protection. Amid their babbles, a piece of memory began to surface. The twins were simply overwhelmed. They had been trying to navigate the obstacles of a hastily constructed fort made from pillows and couch cushions. They had been trying to extend their playtime, seeking adventure without understanding the limitations of their newly mastered abilities. In that moment, Ethan's heart softened with the realization of how often he himself had attempted to reconstruct his past to fit into his current life. That recognition ignited a new plan within him. Perhaps, he could take the raw energy of his past, his misguided ambition, the reckless pursuit of success, and forge a new path that would allow him to step back into his identity while honoring the present stakes of fatherhood. Did he want to re-enter the complex world Mark described? He needed to find a way to merge those two aspects instead of pitting them against each other. With newfound resolve, he decided, "We'll build the biggest fort ever." The twins' laughter erupted, infectious joy washing over him as he turned chaos into creativity, and danger into a safe space for exploration. His heart swelled as he felt the warmth of their giggles reverberate in the room. In those moments, he realized that protection wasn't just about securing their physical safety, it meant allowing them the freedom to explore but also guiding them through inevitable failures. It was a balance, much like the one he sought in his career choice. After the fort was built, and they sank into a pile of cushions with giggles and squeals filling the room, a thought struck him: if he engaged with Marcus' proposal, he would need to ensure it wouldn't compromise the protection he wanted to offer his family, only transform it. Yet as they played, the sense of an impending decision loomed over him, his mind whirling with possible scenarios that lay ahead. What decisions would he make in the coming days? Would he rekindle old partnerships or carve out completely new solutions? He watched the twins, the innocence of their laughter mixing with the weight of his thoughts, and then, just as clarity started to form, the phone buzzed again on the counter, a reminder that his past was relentless, and the shadows would not resign easily. Ethan's pulse quickened, the moment of truth was approaching. He needed to confront the foundation of his choices, the real cost of growth, and whether he could achieve balance without surrendering to past chaos. What awaited him on the other side of that call could change everything he was beginning to believe about his journey. Would he be willing to answer that call and face the chaos he thought he had left behind? Ethan stood at the crossroads of his life, his internal landscape shifting as swiftly as the external one. The laughter of his children echoed around him, a stark contrast to the worries that had focused in his mind just moments before. Cradling the twins' giggles within his heart, he realized he had a choice to make: either retreat back into the shadows of isolation or step boldly into the light of connection and shared responsibility. The phone buzzed again, snapping him back into the present. Ignoring the instinct to silence it, he picked up the device and took a deep breath. As he glanced at the caller ID, he saw it was Michael. Propelled by the clear need for action, he answered. "Ethan," Michael's voice resonated with urgency. "Have you thought more about our security plans? The sooner we act, the safer your family will be." Ethan could feel his heart race. This was the moment where he could reaffirm the protective instincts he had slowly begun to cultivate. "Let us meet and finalize everything," he replied, a newfound conviction underpinning his words. "I want to ensure that my kids can be safe at home while continuing to live without fear." Michael's agreement was immediate, but as the conversation wound down, Ethan felt a wave of exhilaration mixed with trepidation. The groundwork they laid would alter the landscape of his previous life, a life where he had once sought control over everything, including his family. Now, he fully understood, protection came from shared vigilance, trust, and a willingness to let others in. With a solid plan forming in his mind, he shifted focus back to the twins. Their fort, a chaotic symbol of childhood spontaneity, stretched across the living room. "Let us take it outside," he suggested, excitement bubbling in his voice. They bolted through the door into the backyard, where he helped them construct an even larger fort from blankets and cushions under the summer sun. As they giggled and worked together, Ethan was acutely aware of the lessons unfolding before him. There, amidst the laughter, layers of connection were forming. Each shared moment not only fortified their emotional bond but began to mend gaps in his own self-perception. This interaction transformed into a tangible representation of togetherness amidst challenges, and understanding that protection was not merely a physical barrier but an emotional shield forged through collaboration. The call from Mark lingered at the edge of his mind like a shadow. The conflict within him beckoned a reiteration of past temptations and the specter of chaos. However, as he looked at his children, navigating their own creative journeys, he felt uncharacteristic clarity emerge. He was not just a successful businessman, he was a father, a protector guiding his children through uncertainties. He had begun to redefine what it meant to truly lead, a commitment ripple affecting through his life. A week later, Ethan gathered his family and shared their new security framework, what Michael had helped install in their home. "This is togetherness, not just us versus the world," he began, looking into their eager eyes. "Here's how we will keep each other safe." Animated discussions on safety became a unique family tradition, combining their creativity with necessary precautions. They shared fears openly, transforming anxiety into a collective sense of security. Then came the call from Mark again. This time, however, Ethan approached it differently. I appreciate the opportunity, but I have reevaluated what matters most to me. My focus is on protecting my family and fostering connections, he asserted, feeling unshackled from obligations that had once defined him. Saying no to the allure of past ventures felt liberating. The act itself cemented his growth. Ethan's transformation crystallized. He embraced vulnerability among his children, entrusted family collaborations over isolation, and actively cultivated alliances that meant something beyond administration. Each step removed layers of anxiety, replacing them with relationships threaded through honesty and trust. He had conquered not just the external threats but also the internal conflicts that had shadowed his decisions. Finally, as he tucked the twins into bed one night, their sleepy eyes fluttering, Ethan marveled at how far he had come. "You know, no matter what happens, we'll always protect each other," he whispered. "Like superheroes." They chimed in unison, their laughter spilling into the quiet night. In that moment of profound fulfillment, Ethan felt a wave of gratitude and solid confidence. He had achieved not just safety but a reassurance that came from the bonds of love forged in vulnerability. He had conquered the past and emerged with not only a resilient family but a renewed commitment to embrace the intricacies of togetherness. As he settled into his own bed, a sense of satisfaction washed over him. This was his life now, one illuminated by the bright connection with his children and the rekindled relationships cultivated alongside them. He understood that true power lay not in control, but in the strength of authentic partnerships and shared journeys. Life had become a new chapter, ripe with possibilities. He had transformed, not just for himself, but for the cherished family he vowed to protect. Now, it's time for you to become part of this transformative journey too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters more than you think. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread inspiration and courage. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.